Good afternoon, esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, and valued participants. Welcome to this virtual roundtable on inclusive classrooms, inclusive futures, unleashing the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion in education. This roundtable is hosted by the CSRUniverse and powered by Buddy for Study. Inclusive education is the foundation of a just society where every child, regardless of background, has equal access to opportunities, overcoming systematic barriers of gender, caste, class, disabilities, language, and location requires collaborative efforts, with CSR initiative playing a pivotal role. While there have been many encouraging statistics pertaining to education, we all would agree that a lot more needs to be done. Advancing inclusive classroom involves teacher training, innovative teaching learning mechanisms, technology integration, community engagement, and much more. Providing strategic recommendation to policymakers and stakeholders is equally crucial to create an ecosystem conducive to better education. Let us seize this opportunity to explore strategies, share insights, and commit to actionable steps that will pave the way for truly inclusive classroom and future. Today, we have gathered with a distinguished panel of 12 industry experts and stakeholders to delve into these critical issues. Allow me to introduce our panelists in the alphabetical order. So here we have Mr. Anshuman Kumar, Project Manager from Palladium India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sonal. It is an honor to be part of this discussion.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, we have Ms. Arushi Gambhir, disability right activist from UNODC. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Captain Indrani Singh, Managing Trustee from Literacy India. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Jayashree Ramesh, Director Education from Kotak Education Foundation. Welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to be with all of you.
And next, Ms. Monica Walia, Head CSR from GlobalLogic India. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sonal, and it's a pleasure to be part of this very important discussion today.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, Ms. Neha Agrawal, Chief Strategy and Growth Officer from Buddy for Study. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. Looking forward to an insightful discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. Ravi Sonal, Founder and CEO from Enabling Leadership. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, and great to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Ritesh Sinha from Vice President and Head from HDFC Bank. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward to be part of this panel.
Next, we have Mr. Samad Pathak, Communication Head, Regional Focal Point from United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Sonal, and delighted to be a part of this amazing panel of experts. I think we are all set to have a great masterclass on inclusion, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we have Mr. Sushanta Kumar Bhuran, Director Programs from Smile Foundation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be part of this esteemed panel and hope there will be an enriching discussion.
Next, we have Mr. Vivek Prakash, Vice President and Head CSR from Jubilant Bhartia Limited. Welcome, sir.
I think he was here, but I think it's okay, Sonal, you can continue.
Next, Mr. Arun Naravali, Executive Director and Sustainability Livelihood from Magic Bus India Foundation. He was going to join us, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, he won't be able to join today. Anyways, uh, we are thankful to all of you for joining us today. And I'm personally very excited about this discussion, and I'm looking forward to learning from each one of you. In fact, with your permission, I would like to ask the first question. So I would like to ask the first question. Education is such a broad domain, and there are so many issues to address that it seems almost overwhelming. I would like your take on what is the most immediate concern that we should be focusing on, or what should be our first step when it comes to creating inclusive and qualitatively enriching learning environments. I would request Ms. Jayashree ma'am to answer this question, especially because you have over 30 years experience as an educationist, including an advocate for autism and special education. So ma'am, please share your views. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. And my experience with inclusivity and diversity has been for the last 25 plus years. I began as a teacher and then the administrator and now a project head and running various projects for the marginalized society. Irrespective of where we are, the problem remains the same. The inclusivity and diversity still is a big question mark and unanswered by many. While the government has clearly laid out policies, but that reaching to the last mile to the student is becoming that gap is only getting widened, I would say. There are multiple reasons for this, right from awareness. Our teacher educators, still our teacher trainings do not have a sufficient kind of course material and experience being sent to them on how do you teach in a classroom where you have diverse students. There is differentiated instructions for different learning styles, but there are other inclusive factors that we need to consider. So my experience as a mother of an autistic child has always been that while policies are in place, the last minute, who's there to guide the parents, who's there to guide our students? The awareness is a big piece that is missing big time, is what I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would request our consulting editor, Dr. Shweta Singh, and editor, Ms. Ruchika Kumar, to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. I think Ruchika has a bad connection, but that's okay. And you asked a very pertinent question that education is such a broad domain and diversity itself is a very broad domain. And there are so many issues that need to be tackled, but what's the most important one? Where should we focus our attention? I would first like to go to Arushi. Arushi, I was personally looking forward to speaking to you. And what are the challenges? Because since you are a disability rights activist and you have not only faced but overcome those challenges, and now you're helping others, in facing them. So could you please unmute yourself and give us some insights into what's happening on the ground?
So first of all, let me start by expressing my gratitude for this invitation. Thank you for having me as part of this panel for this very pertinent, very important conversation, because I think the root of DEI lies in the communities that we are targeting, be it gender, be it caste, be it disabilities, and representation from that community while we have this conversation has to be there. Because unless we have a bottoms-up approach, unless we give this chance to the children, to the students, to the advocates who've seen the ground realities, who've been through that stage of life, this conversation will not be complete, in my humble opinion. So as for the challenges, I think, of course, the challenge of policies that are in place reaching the ground, as Jayashree ma'am said already, it is a very pertinent challenge because we have things like the National Education Policy, things like the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016. They actually go a lot in depth, in great depth actually, to give the education rights for people with students with several disabilities. And there are global level manuals in place to actually talk about universal design as to how classrooms should be to include all children with all disabilities and abilities. but how much are we able to sort of, see it on ground? How much are we able to realize still remains a very, very pertinent question. And I feel personally it comes from the difference between awareness and sensitization. The teachers have the know-how. They are B.Ed, M.Ed. Our teachers are one of the most qualified professionals in this country. I will give them that. But while they are taught about children with disabilities, a lot of them, first of all, don't have that specialization. So a lot of with inclusive classrooms, the drawback it little bit is in the fact that they have the know-how, but then with 30 other students in the same classroom, the child is not getting that kind of attention. The child, if they need a separate sort of curriculum, a separate learning module, where if the child is able to learn audiovisually better, or if there are accessibility needs, the teacher alone cannot be handling all of that. So there is also a lot of pressure on this educator in terms of giving this child the needs that they deserve. That is there, and they are aware, but are they sensitive enough? Do they actually consider, do the policymakers actually consider children with disabilities as a future human resource? Is a pertinent question, because we have a very common stereotype saying that these kids don't amount to anything in their futures. It's because you are trying to enforce the same stereotypical one-size-fits-all education system to these children. They're not able to many times cope up with that, and that's why they are not able to use it to take up jobs. So that is another challenge, and there is lack of convergence between a child's therapeutic interventions versus education. For example, if there's a child with cerebral palsy, now on the face of it, this child has a locomotor impairment, but cerebral palsy sometimes also comes with cognitive and speech impairments. There are several therapies, speech, physio, all of that. So a lot of time these children have to choose between going to therapy or going to school, accessing that education. Some schools have managed to bring that amalgamation of putting the physios and all of that under the same roof as the education, but then those schools are expensive and they're not within the reach of every disabled person, especially because 71% of children with disabilities in this country live in the rural belt of this country. So that is, the access is again a big problem. Being able to go to school is a big problem, and we are discussing DEI in terms of urban settings, metropolitan settings per se, right? We have not even tapped into the rural base right now. The problems of rural children with disabilities are manifold, and they are going for different challenges. That challenges of survival right now. That challenges of education, it's of survival as well. So I think these are some of the very pertinent issues that we are facing right now. And unless we work on the ground level, and unless we start from the very surface level conversation of accessibility, going to social inclusion from there, it will be for us, it is still a challenge, and we are in 2024. And I thought, I was under the impression maybe because in early 2000s when I was doing my schooling, maybe then there was a problem. Turns out when I talk to parents of 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, problems remain, and they've actually in some areas worsened, if not stagnant, they've worsened. So these are some of the issues that I have to my knowledge and to my experiences, we face currently and need to address.
Thank you, Arushi. I mean, that's very pertinent what you said. We are talking about inclusion in terms of urban settings. Even there, we haven't been able to reach the entire population. And the rural area still, it's almost untouched. So, but I'd like to take Ritesh Ji's view here, because HDFC Bank has a very holistic program, HDFC Parivartan, where they look at education in a very broad manner. So, Ritesh, could you share your views on how you tackle the issue of inclusivity in your initiatives, education initiatives?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So if I were to pinpoint one single thing that will at least help achieve at a solution at an accelerated pace, is collaboration. So we have stopped talking about convergence, but we have started to talk about collaboration. Before I get into other point, I will just highlight one of the examples of a project that we are currently undertaking. We have realized that in the space of education, you need to collaborate with the Department of Education and the state governments. So we have MOUs with almost 8 to 10 state governments where we are talking about using school not only as a medium to transfer learning modules, but as more of a transformative institution. Because I think, and therefore 2 or 3 things that has happened under this collaboration is, one, we have done content for these governments altogether, which is conscious about the issues related to DEI. And one of the parameters that is there in the agenda is how do we translate this rhetoric to action? What is there in the hands of the teacher who is ultimately delivering the content at the class level, at the classroom? What is it that they need to do? Right. And that is something that we have been very consciously done. We have currently worked with about 60,000 children in these states with a more focused approach. It's kind of a pilot where, and then this will be scaled up. So teaching learning modules, teachers' handbooks, which are consciously addressing the issues related to discrimination, I would say, is something that we have seen as, and when there is a buy-in of the government stakeholders, we see the rollout happening very rapidly and at a very accelerated pace. So do I get another chance to speak? Otherwise, I have a few more points which I will then park for now and then take it forward later.
Of course, you'll get, I mean, a chance. But if there's something related to what you were saying, you can please continue, and then we'll go to the next participant.
Sure. So what we have understood is at the school level, the teacher has to be the nucleus of channelizing all the efforts. The problem is not only the DEI aspects in a school. It becomes a focal point of actually accumulating all kind of discriminatory practices. And I can challenge everybody who is there on this room and also attending. You yourself or your children might have faced some or the other kind of comment or practice which looks to be very routine, but it is discriminatory. It could be related to your physical characteristics, it could be related to gender, and so on and so forth. And we tend to ignore it. Right. And the teachers are also very used to, things like this happening, to the extent that sometimes these interactions between teachers and students also are borderline discriminatory, I would say. So making the teachers understand very clearly what is required to be done, what is not acceptable, and then use the content in a very positive way will help establish this entire thing. And when the children take whatever they practice in the school, when they take it back to the society, and what they bring from the society, from their parents, from their families, it ultimately has a strong ripple effect, and the societal values can be built or can be destroyed to some extent. So it is a very important thing. And therefore, sensitivity development for the teachers is super critical for successful implementation of DEI schools. Thanks.
Right. I would like to go to Captain Indrani next. Ma'am, could you please turn on your video?
Yeah, hi.
Yes, I'd like your take because you're also into education on a very broad scale. So how do you probably integrate DEI principles into your work and ensure that every child is assimilated into the classroom and has a good learning experience, irrespective of their differences?
See, I agree with Ritesh, what he is talking about. In our ecosystem, many things are lacking. And like Arushi was saying, many things are not actually, it doesn't dawn upon the parents that, we need to accept what we have right now in our children. So it starts from home. So let's say poor kids and the rural communities are not aware of it. We can plan the coming generation or the current generation to start with value education. Our value education in olden days in our school, when I was in my growing up years, we used to have a book of moral science, and in that moral science, there was respect, acceptance, tolerance, avoid greed, what is happiness quotient means. All that was there in that small booklet, which is not there currently. Unfortunately, NCERT has just brought in again, all these things. People are laughing at the transgender. All that is slowly coming back into the system. And we need to actually emphasize this more right from our growing up years. Child is 4 or 5 year old. From there onwards, the parents, the teachers, trainer, the whole ecosystem, wherever we are, we need to, in fact, enforce this. And we being the organization, I was actually, I had driven to Sikkim recently. And in one of the monasteries where I visited, there is a small pizza place, excellent pizza, out of nowhere. They make bread all right, but the pizza was really, really good. And there was a girl who was serving pizza, and she seemed from north. You could make out the Sikkimese, the kind of, the face they have. And this girl seemed either from Delhi NCR or somewhere here, or Maharashtra or Karnataka, wherever. So I found out what she was doing over there. She belongs to a very rich family. She went there and she was serving pizza. She was doing the billing and she was taking the orders and everything. She was there as per the rest of the people, and she was shy and talking to me, but she was finding herself. She was trying to find the humbleness of our life. What we need to be humble. All that is actually not taught in school. Our teachers also forget many times. So I agree with Ritesh. The collaboration is very, very important. That's why we enforce group studies in our classes. We encourage children to speak out. We encourage a whole lot of creative activities through which they can express their sense, whatever they are sensitive about, whatever they feel that, this should be focused upon. Kids talk about, oh, I love dogs. Why people, not take care of dogs or animals or plants. All that we need to bring back. In olden days, super olden days, I think my grandmother, she might have gone through that kind of system of educating self. There were hardly any schools as such, but they self-educated themselves. And in our ecosystem, we need to bring in this. It is our individual responsibility. Forget about it's a corporate responsibility, institutional responsibility. It is our individual responsibility to have those values within us, which we want in our generations to come and the current generation to behave in that fashion. And if that happens, it's not too far off. We'll have our changes, everything will change for good. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was such a beautiful story. I mean, I'm sure we all love to hear about that girl. But from what all of you said up till now, I feel we are talking about ecosystem change, and Arushi mentioned that we have the most qualified teachers, but do they have the essential sensitivities to probably address the needs of children who are different? And I think since they come from the same society, we actually need to look at a cultural shift. I mean, the teachers are not coming from anywhere else. They are a part of the society. They carry the same baggages, and especially in rural areas. So that's a major aspect. But I'll not give my views. I want to hear all of you. Monica, I'd like to go to you next. Can you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Monica, please go ahead.
Shweta. Yeah, thanks, Shweta. So I think everyone is really talking about, the on-ground reality and what it is, right? While we have policies, but what is the really, what is the situation on ground? And I would really kind of echo what Indrani said and what Ritesh really mentioned about. I think we are talking about a topic like DEI, and it has to come up as a different agenda and an issue to be discussed is in itself like a question, right? In a country like India where we are so diverse, whether it's culturally or in different aspects, But here we have to really push that agenda, whether, across the country in small institutions, or it is at, different levels. And I very strongly believe that, it is all a vicious cycle, and it starts from the home, very rightly. Because when a child is growing up, we as a society, we are actually feeding a lot of thoughts and processes in the child. Now, again, this is, further accelerated or taken care of. It can be both ways in the education institute that the child has been throughout that throughout the period where the child is being educated, right from the primary to the higher education levels. And further, this vicious cycles, gets either instigated or gets a chance to kind of really worked on when they get such culture in a working space. So the shift either happens or it does not, but the entire cycle is really, really vicious, starting from the home itself. And and we'll have to teach this right from the right when the child is there in the primary grades, to know what cultural empathy is and how we really need to respect each other. So these are basic things that we need to imbibe in each and every individual. And I think nothing better than an educational space is really a space where we can really imbibe that in every child. So whatever has been done, but here is a chance that we can really kind of work towards, whether it is our curriculums or the teaching methodologies, or training the teachers, etc. But I think that's how we all need to start together. And I think very rightly put up that collaboration is really the key to be able to take this to the next levels. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. I'd like to go to Sushanta ji, because we're aware of the work of Smile Foundation. I mean, they work so closely with especially the underprivileged, marginalized communities. So could you give some insights from your work that could be helpful?
Thank you. I think I completely go with the other speaker, what they said. I just want to broaden the whole word diversity. As everybody said, it could be diverse socioeconomic background. It could be the gender. It could be even the ability in the classroom itself. There are certain set of children not learning, and some are learning at very fast pace. So when you talk about diversity definition could be range from ability based to even to from children coming from different background, from different ability to learn. So within the classroom, you can have a different set of children. My understanding, working with the ground with the small, very very grassroots NGOs, Smile works, and very very remote places where the they do not have access. Even the general children do not have access to education. And what we have found is about the belief of the parents of the society. These children can learn, and the starting point is from there. And once that is there, then you can bucket this whole issue into two buckets. One is supply side and demand side. If you look at the demand side, also there are issues. So even I have seen in the residential schools where the children with special needs are studying. Even summer vacation, parents do not come to take them. So I think there are issues at demand level, at a parental level, at a societal level, to believe that these children can also learn. So that's a big piece, I should say, the sensitivity we are talking about. And of course, starting at the supply side, you will start from your policy to implementation. There are all level, there are issues. I would just pinpoint on one issue, because my esteemed panelists have already touched upon many aspects. See, in our government education system, if you look at the monitoring system, monitoring mechanism, is this special children find a place? Or each system is monitoring what is the progress, what happened to them? I think we have a very generic approach vis-a-vis a differential approach. So that differentiation needs to be brought in every aspect, starting from curriculum, training, policy framework, even in-service training to pre-service training, to your delivery level, to monitoring level, every level. I think that it is question of recognizing everyone. We need a differential approach. If that is there, I think everywhere we can find a movement. I think the statistics also says the children with disability rarely complete their primary schools. Only 9% children complete secondary education. So that's the level we are. And I think from CSR standpoints or from support standpoint, I will again say, as rightly said by one of our panelists, we need more and more support into more inaccessible area, rural area, where even small NGOs who are working are struggling. Though there is intent to serve, they are struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushanta. Anshuman, I'd like you to give us some insights next from your projects. What have you? What are your first-hand experiences like, and what insights would you like to share?
So, thank you for the opportunity. So, Palladium, I work with Palladium, and it is an impact-driven consulting firm. So, when my client is right now Nasik Municipal Corporation, and we wanted, after pandemic, we wanted to transform all the municipal schools into a smart school, because in the last couple of years we have seen that major CSRs of the giant corporates, they are working towards a smart classroom and all. So their main agenda is to shift the traditional education into a smart education, so that each student can learn from audio and visual impact rather than going through traditional notebooks and all. So when we joined the government, we did as study. So through as study, we realized that what is the current status, like current benchmarking at various parameters. We took 495 different parameters, like we were having sets, subsets of questions, so that we can analyze what is required at different levels. Once we did the analysis, we came to know that if we want to transform the whole 100 schools, like there are 100 schools in Nasik Municipal Corporation, so we realized that there is a requirement of XYZ CR, but the government is not having the budget. Same condition if we talk about broader level, as many panelists we are saying, government is not having sufficient budget, be it in rural area or urban area. The first challenge, being a consulting firm was to provide a sustainable budget so that the project can be implemented. So we tried to engage with different government. Is there any government of India program which can fund for this project? Is there any CSR who is working in education, that too for digital classroom or digital transformation? So we collaborated in both way. So we got the government of India fund. So there is a smart city mission. A smart city mission is having fund under ICT project. So we got the fund from there. At the same time, we also got fund from like DMART Foundation. So they work in transformation of a smart classroom and all. So we also realized that why there is discrimination in community, like those parents who are earning a decent livelihood, they want to send their children to private school, even they have to pay 500 or 1000 rupees fee, but they do not want to send the children to public school, be it in rural areas, since in rural areas they do not have the accessibility of a school. In urban areas there is option, if you are having the money you can send the children to private school. Our aim was to bring this transformation and the change of mindset in the community and the parents, that the government school is far better than the private school. So how to transform these things and change the mindset of the parents? So we transform whole school.
Excuse me, Anshuman, I think somebody, I can hear an echo here, or maybe somebody's.
There's an echo, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can continue.
Okay. So what we did that, first of all, we did the analysis that what is the requirement. We also interacted with parents. What is their perceptions about the government schools? What they expect from the government school? Not only from the infrastructure perspective, but also from the teacher's perspective. Like, is there one-way communication or two-way communication? What is the learning outcome of the children? If the children goes out of his school and reaches home, how he or she interacts with the parents, what he demands from the parents. So we took all the aspects and we transformed all the 100 schools into a smart school. So what we did that, we not only did the physical transformation, we also completed like electric transformation, then new design, paint, civil infrastructure development. We have interactive panels, like every classroom is having 75-inch of interactive panel. They are having a state government like SCERT approved digital content in various language, be it in Marathi, Hindi, Urdu, English, as per the school course curriculum. So any teacher, if he is teaching any subject, he can also show some videos, some audios to the students. They can save the same content. If someone is doing some calculation, he can save the calculation in his folder, and from tomorrow onwards, he can again open the folder. He can teach from the same place. In earlier time, they used to rub with duster and all. Even now, what is happening that the students are engaging with the teachers. They are demanding that we want to learn like this. They come themselves. They open the app, like digital content app. So participatory approach has increased. Like earlier, the students used to listen more. Now they are engaging themselves. Like they are demanding themselves. Once the demand is coming, there is also pressure on headmasters, teachers, that okay, we also want to improve, because the students are demanding, parents are also demanding. Now our challenge was to make the teachers smart, because they were teaching in the traditional way. So
Anshumanji, sorry, we are still hearing an echo.
yes,
But
I'm
it's
also hearing the
okay.
same.
It is there. But Anshumanji, I would come back to you. We are actually running out of time. So I'd like to go to Ravi ji now. I'd come back to you, Anshumanji, and
Yes,
we'll
sir.
hear more. Ravi, Ravi ji, yes. I hope I'm audible to you.
There's some background noise.
There is just give us a minute to solve this. Is somebody's mic on? No. Okay, it totally went. Thank you, whoever solved this. Okay, Raviji, now I'd like to come to you. You are empowering students through sports. So give us your perspective, because it's a different perspective to share. How do you assimilate different kinds of students in your initiatives, and what kind of changes do you observe in them?
Sure, sure. No, so just to clarify, Shweta, our organization, we focus on building life skills for underserved children. We work primarily in the government schools, both urban and rural. And we use sports, music, and building blocks, like Lego type of building blocks, as a medium to be able to teach these particular skills, right? But I'll probably give you a slightly different perspective. There might be some overlap to what everyone has been talking about, because one, I would separate out what Arushi was talking about and what a little bit Sushanta was talking about, because when you think about inclusion from a disability point of view, it's a fairly complex and a very specialized area, right? But I probably point a little bit to what is a hidden aspect of access and opportunity, right? So if I'll maybe start by saying that, we always are very proud of Indian history, and we talk about how we've always been very accepting of religions and languages, and people from all over the world have come and settled here, etc. But still today, what has happened is, let's say if you go outside of India and you meet another Indian person, it's very rare that somebody says, "Are you from India?" They'll say, "Are you Gujarati? Are you from Punjab? Are you a South Indian? Are you a North Indian?" So we have a tendency to continuously look at what are the differences rather than what is it that binds us. And in a way, I think that percolates all the way through society in an odd way, right? And I'll maybe point to a few kind of interesting facts and maybe some anecdotes before I tell you the perspective that I'm talking about, right? So, for example, in Karnataka, there are 49,000 government high schools, but there are only 670 pre-university colleges. So these are 11th standard and 12th standard, right? So I asked someone who's in the education department saying, how come 49,000 to 670? And his reply was, no, because there are so many private pre-university colleges, so we don't need to provide that, right? But what does that do? It means that I need to be able to afford to go to the private school. And therefore, if I don't have the money, then I stop at my 10th standard, right? I was in a village in North Karnataka, and I was, in a way, initially pleasantly surprised when I saw most of the 9th standard filled with girls. I was like, wow, this is amazing to see in a remote village. Most of the 9th standard classroom is filled with girls. And the principal said to me, he said, look, I don't want to paint this as a pleasant picture, but the only reason we have girls in our school is because all the boys are in the private school in the town nearby, right? So what does that mean? The parents are willing to pay for the school fees for the boys, but not for the girls. I've seen in urban schools, in urban government schools, a lot of kids who come from migrant populations and tend to be seen as second-class citizens sitting in the back of the classroom. And they've been asked to sit in the back of the classroom either by the rest of the children or sometimes even by the teacher, right? So these are, in a way, hidden lack of inclusion. And yes, in theory, everyone has access to the school, has access to the classroom, but not really, when you think of these societal issues, right? So there is a tremendous need to invest in two aspects. One of them is, how do you change the perspectives of the stakeholders who are involved in the child's development? The parents, the communities, the people who live in the village. Sometimes the village elders have such a big say in what happens. They won't allow something to happen. So for example, we run a mixed gender football program where half the team is girls and the other half team is boys, and they play against another team that's also half girls and half boys. And today, I think we might have the largest mixed gender tournament in the whole world. We have about 6,500 kids playing in this tournament, right? We thought that the biggest problem would be getting the girls and the boys to play together. That was not the problem at all. The bigger problem was with the coaches and their perspective of how to deal with girls and boys. Another problem was with parents, because the parents were not very comfortable. They were very happy to send their boys to go and play. They were very happy to send girls to play, but the minute you mix the two together, they were not okay with that, right? And sometimes with those parents who are okay with it, you had some community elders saying, hey, you seem to be a rogue parent of sorts, right? Because you're allowing something that's not actually allowed societally. We run this Lego program where kids build all sorts of structures in groups of 5, right? And initially, we ask our teachers to say, let the kids form their own groups, right? And what you actually see is sometimes there's a gender split, so all the girls go and play together, all the boys go and play together. But a lot of times it's actually how they have been, in a way, systematized through the programs and through the exposures that they have. We've seen some cases where kids from the same caste are together in a village. We've actually seen some kids not accepting someone who's not from the same religion. But these are not conscious decisions they're making. These are things that have, these stigmas have been there right through, right? So I'd say there's one aspect, which is how do you have a very, very programmatic investment in teachers, in parents, in all the stakeholders, so that their perspectives are about inclusion. We use the term in our organization, every child can be a leader, right? So can you say that every child has the ability to excel, has the ability to go and do something with themselves, provided they're given the real access and the real opportunity? How do you build that amongst all the different stakeholders, right? The second part is, how do you create a learning environment? And I think Ritesh pointed out very correctly, right? It's not about inclusive classrooms, because the classroom is one very small aspect of education. There's a lot of education that happens outside the classroom, on the playground, during the recess, during the games that kids play in the neighborhoods, etc. So how do you create the right learning environments? Because these same children are going to become the adults who carry all of these biases with them, right? In fact, one of the things we talk about in our organization is we do a menstrual health session with the kids, right? But we have both the boys and the girls sitting in the session, because at the end of the day, it's the same boys who are going to become men down the road. And it's the same men who are going to think about what periods mean and what menstrual health means, right? So if they carry these perceptions through life, you're going to end up with the same set of issues in society. So how do you create learning environments that are truly, truly inclusive, where, one of the things, for example, in our mixed gender football, we actually teach kids that it's the role that the person is playing. Someone is the goalkeeper. If you want to win a match, the goalkeeper has to save the goal. It doesn't matter whether it's a girl or a boy. You're not going to win the match unless the goalkeeper saves the goal, right? So the role matters and not the gender in this particular case. It could be caste, it could be language, it could be religion, it could be a lot of different things. But how do you think of it as an inclusive environment where children are able to function and flourish and thrive, irrespective, but also even in a way celebrate those diversities, right? How do you teach those in the classroom? So those are the two things I would point to as being very important and sadly neglected. We're very happy to go build a new a school room. We're very happy to invest in a library. We're very happy to invest in a digital classroom. CSR departments are happy to donate computers. But this is a soft skill investment that is very, very important and sadly neglected.
Thank you,
Simply
Ravi.
true.
Neha, welcome back. Yes,
Yeah.
Neha. I mean, we're all aware of the work Buddy for Study is doing, and I think you're probably helping give access to so many students, give access to good education to so many students through your scholarship programs, the scholarships that you facilitate. So what is your take? Particularly, I would like to know your insights on how technology, because you're the expert in that, how technology is helping in, probably promoting or fostering more inclusion.
Absolutely. So at Buddy for Study, DEI has been in our genes, and we have been focusing a lot on DEI at the talking about in the program designing level as well. So we advocate with our funders, our partners, to give more weightages to these students coming from PWD or transgenders or females or orphans for that matter, right? So that's the first stage where we try to include DEI as a part of all the programs which we manage. So then once the designing is done, the second part comes in when these students start applying for these scholarship programs. So when the students apply, as you rightly said, Shweta, technology has been our core forte and the backbone. So we put up customized shortlisting algorithms because we received lakhs of applications even to support few thousand of students. So to come down to that level, to whom do we have to select has to be a very conscious decision, right? So we discuss with the partners in terms of what weightages can be given to encourage more DEI. It can be around giving more weightages to female candidates, to including orphans or PWD or trans, etc. And also students from the aspirational districts, because they are the ones who are not getting all sorts of benefits which probably a urban or even a rural student might get. So that's a second stage at the shortlisting while we are doing and bringing down the students, the final scholars. We do take care of these DEI aspects. And because of these few initiatives which we have been taking, I'm happy to share that in Buddy for Study ecosystem, so far we have supported 93,000 students. So out of that, 55% are girls. And we have even a few programs which has come up, and even the CSR funders are coming up with the focus on DEI these days, where we have seen few partners asking for scholarship program only for transgenders. So that was the first time this year we have program which is only for transgenders. So there certainly the challenges are there on ground, because they do not come up very openly. So there has to be, like what Ritesh sir and other also mentioned, collaboration is very important. So we do collaborate with NGO partners, with institutions who really work at the ground level with these students, encourage them to apply. and enhance the accessibility, right? So these are a few things which we have been doing. Apart from that, PWD has also been our focus across all the programs. Whichever scholarship program we do launch, we do ensure that the students from the vulnerability index do get certain additional weightages, and they are able to complete their education, which otherwise they are dropping off. So we have so many success stories is what we come out with every time to encourage the students to even participate from these sections, and we do conduct certain mentoring sessions where the students, like say a PWD student giving mentoring to the other students. So that's where the courage also builds up from the student side, and that message, a very right message, goes as well, that these students have a lot of potential, but we really need to support them at the right time when they need to nurture and really make that change in the whole environment.
Great. Thank you, Neha. Thank you for your views, and I completely agree with you. So I want to move on to Samarth actually from UNODC over here, because Samarth is their Rise Up for Peace initiative is all about bridging this kind of divide when it comes to digital divide, gender, and of course changing the mindsets also. So I need to understand two things from you, Samarth. First, can you tell us what are the challenges that you face in integrating the DEI factor in your education projects in this, especially in this initiative, and also what are the strategies or the good practices that can ensure an inclusive learning atmosphere environment?
Right. So thank you, Ruchika. I think it has been a fascinating conversation so far. But I would like to start, maybe by sharing, especially for our viewers who may not be so well versed with DEI, to understand what inclusion is, first and foremost. When we're talking about a term, let's make that term clear. So how do we explain it simply? How do we explain inclusion or DEI simply? I would say by imagining a beautiful garden, different plants, different flowers, some big plants, some small plants, different shapes and sizes. Now imagine that, of course, in the heat in Delhi right now, when we are all of course melting, imagine these plants, some have dried up, some are thriving, some are in large pots, some are getting some extra shade, among others, so you see the range. Now, how do you think a gardener would tend to these plants? Does he provide all the plants with the same amount of water? Does he, is it like a one standard thing that he does? Or does he follow the same pattern or the same routine for all? No, it won't work, because each of them requires different attention, different care, exclusive attention also in many ways. So I don't think there can be a better example to illustrate what inclusion truly means in society. Imagining society as a beautiful garden, where plants are there in different colors, shapes, and sizes, and each of them add beauty to the garden. Now that's how students are in the classroom, so embracing diversity and inclusion enriches the learning environment, and it is also crucial to build a peaceful and just society, because the opposite of DEI is discrimination. And discrimination is also a gateway to a lot of risky behaviors that you see, mental health challenges, mental health triggers, anxieties, uncertainties, etc. And of course, then a gateway may be also to drugs and violence and other things. So only when we ensure that our students rise beyond differences and disparities, they just don't understand diversity, but also cherish it, value it, and work together despite the differences, only then can we truly capitalize on the demographic dividend that we all keep talking about. The one other thing, I'm just taking a few takeaways from what the other panelists said, which were really fascinating views. For example, inclusion is not just about providing access, it's also about actual integration, where it's not just about infrastructure, but also about mindsets and behaviors. And as we all know, in a diverse and complex society like ours, there are different ways in which DEI plays out in real life. It could be in the form of digital divides, which we saw a lot during the pandemic,
Yes.
discrimination on the basis of gender, caste, faith, languages, disabilities, like Arushi mentioned, and it's a complete pleasure to have her with us at UNODC, doing a lot of great work. You have socioeconomic disparities and deep-rooted inequalities in the societies as well. So what we are trying to do at UNODC or with some of our education programs, because education, I think, is the key here, to go beyond the classrooms even when it comes to addressing DEI, is the message. We're taking the message that we can't decide or control where and how we are born, in which circumstances. But with
Right.
education, by learning, we certainly can and should ensure that our differences are minimized, our learning and capacities are enhanced, and we learn to work together in harmony and become more conscientious, I would say, responsible and lawful people. Now, in this journey, there are a lot of significant barriers that we have faced, which includes these disparities that I talk about: digital divide, socioeconomic disparities, deeply ingrained cultural biases, and of course, limited resources, which cannot be understated. So there's a lack of adequate infra, there's a lack of trained individuals or teachers, and the lack of continuous sensitizations program around these. The other challenge that we see a lot, even in the other spaces, in the educational institutions that we work with, is treating students and educators as beneficiaries or audience or target groups than as equal partners, equal stakeholders.
Right.
What does this mean? It is not a fancy word that we use. It is basically that we capitalize on the power of peer-to-peer influence. When it comes to drugs, for example, we always say, hey, there's a lot of peer-to-peer influence, but why can't that be used for positive, purposes as well? So equal partners means that we use the interventions that we are designing when it comes to DEI or other themes is developed in consultation with the partners, with the students that we are working with the teachers that we are working with, giving them ownership of the program and co-creating initiatives and the responses, the solutions with them. Now, one thing, I'll just take a few minutes on this. That one thing is clear in this journey, that these cannot be addressed by one-off initiatives. This I cannot highlight more. Having one nice summit, one nice conference, one nice event here and there will not solve this. Addressing these issues requires sustained engagement in partnership with these stakeholders, with the educational institutions, and there has to be a series-based approach. It has to be continuous engagement, which I believe, that's where a lot of we miss the point, So we need to move beyond short-term gains, mere photo ops, speeches, also the mindset to have numbers there, that reaching out to millions of people at once. I always tell. Oh, I think I was muted. One thing that I always, believe very strongly is that when it comes to behavior change, if an event claims that, we have reached out to millions of people at once, that means that the message has not been heard. The message has not gone deep enough because there's no direct engagement. How do you expect behavior change? So it may look good in reports and social media, but it's basically outreach for the organizer, for the host, than for the target group. So our experience at UNODC under Rise Up for Peace, which is again an umbrella initiative where we are sort of working with different educational institutions, giving them the ownership, giving them the knowledge support, but allowing the students to come up with, themes, the projects that they want to undertake. So we believe that giving students direct responsibility with activity-based learning, with knowledge support, creating a community of learners with peer-to-peer influence is a game changer. And this can be done with activity-based learning, with interactive two-way dialogues, by giving students a safe space where they can articulate their thoughts no matter what, and a lot of reflection sessions, a lot of, network building or peer group work around bullying, around discrimination and other themes. So, this through this, what we have achieved so far, we have run a lot of programs over the last few years. We have built emotional connects with students, which is, I think, the trigger point, where a lot of change comes. And if it is aligned with what students want to do, so it's not ki tum sab log artwork karo, tum sab log aise karo. No.
Exactly.
In a group of 100 students, you may have 20 students who may be very good artists. do your artwork, create advocacy. Some of the students are very good at sports, like Ravi ji mentioned. Play sports around this. Do something with your skills. Some students are even beyond, they want to get into social entrepreneurship. So design a community initiative, use tech. So we use their skills, their interests, and give them those projects so that they can sort of thrive. So this is, I think, a part of adaptive learning, where we go to each student, sort of map what they want to do, work with them, and take things forward. And this is coupled with capacity building of educators, which is a continuous program, because these are not subjects. This is not, DEI is not like maths or social studies or English,
Absolutely.
where
Yes.
these are like
Yes.
life lessons. So there has to be a different approach, sort of a unique approach under this. I'll just give you a few examples. We have worked with students from both urban and rural areas. I must say that we have had them join hands on projects, and it has not been patronizing. Suppose a top boarding school in India, students working with, say, a disadvantaged group in Jharkhand. Now it's not coming from top to bottom ki, oh, we are helping you, we are distributing something. No, you design a project together. And we have seen that the underprivileged students, for example, from Devghar in Jharkhand, where we have worked, they have actually contributed more to the project, and the students of these top boarding schools have actually learned from them. कि अच्छा ऐसे भी हो सकता है, because the issues that we are talking about is actually, the underprivileged students know it more, because they're living through it. So those are the sort of cross learning and collaborations that we have worked with. We have also tried to reach, through Rise Up for Peace and through our previous work, reach students in a language, a format, and a medium that they are comfortable with. So it's not ki tum sab log, you come on an online platform, which we are governing. You tell us, what are you comfortable with? So you won't believe, we have had cases where students did not have a lot of internet access. All they had was a phone. And we used WhatsApp and audio notes to reach them. And it almost worked like a virtual call without a video. It has been so interactive because they took ownership. Students took that ownership. So, this is basically what we are doing under Rise Up for Peace. These are some, sort of takeaways that we feel are very useful, maybe to develop other initiatives as well. And of course, right now we have Arushi and her friend Alvia, who are our two young stars. Just yesterday, we had a fantastic session with a group of young people from Calcutta, where Arushi and Alvia spoke about how disability plays out in the classrooms, how we can have more inclusive classrooms. And this was Arushi Alvia taking a session with students. And I cannot tell you what an emotional talk that was, because students felt connected. It wasn't a teacher or a celebrity coming and talking. It was actually somebody they could relate to, and Arushi can maybe share, the conversation details, but it was a very enriching program. So I think those are some of the success stories that we are working with. There's adaptability, there is flexibility, because when it comes to DEI, we cannot really go by the book. We need to adapt to these different circumstances. So I have a lot more points to share, some stories, but maybe later.
We'll come back to
We'll come
thank you
back
so
to you.
much. And Shweta, can I?
Ruchika, you want to? Yes, please go
Yes, I
ahead.
have a question for Jayashree ji based on what Samar just spoke about. That community engagement is very important, and you cannot have the same theme or to follow for everybody. So yes, you have to adapt to the different needs of the community. So Jayashree ji, I want to know how your program adapts its approach to meet the specific needs of different communities, and also if you could share the challenges that you have faced till now in integrating DEI within your initiatives.
Thank you. So to begin with, I would like to talk about the programs under the education bucket and the scholarship that we have and what we are doing under the DEI space. To begin with, under DEI, our programs for the foundation literacy, numeracy is something that we have devised and developed in-house, studying all the world models. So we have come up with a model which has stations. So in a classroom, we have multiple stations of, say, listening, reading, speaking, talking, doing peer-to-peer activity, where every child with different learning style has something to do. and also learns at the same time. Here, the peer-to-peer learning becomes a wonderful opportunity for the child to actually communicate, and we also integrate the 21st century skills 4C while doing this station activity in our FLN classrooms. We also have a program called Communicative English and Future Readiness, where we use technology a big time. Somebody asked about leveraging technology. I must say it is a level player in terms of reaching to the last mile student. So we have digitized our content for a spoken English program for middle school students. So this is for students from standard 5 to 8, a spoken English program which believes in the immersive technology, immersive methodology. And this content is directly, consumed by the students, where teacher acts as only as a facilitator. So while doing this, we ensure that the teacher gets enough time to do the hands-on activities in the class, the playway method, and all of that. The technology here is as an assistant teacher to her, where we cater to all the needs of students who are of different learning styles and also students with special abilities. So we have found that this digitized content, students with special abilities are also lapping it up very well. So I'm sure the technology is playing wonderfully in such cases. And to talk about our scholarship program, during COVID, we initiated Kotak Kanya, which is specific to the girl students from meritorious colleges across India. We're tied up with 122 more institutes. It's an open scholarship for girls who are from the marginalized society. And they not only receive a funding check from us, but our USP is to mentor every child. Every girl has a mentor, but as you know, when they enter the IITs and AIMS, the year one is the most challenging one, where especially our girls who come from the marginalized society find it extremely difficult to manage year one in terms of peer pressure, academic pressure, staying away from home. That is where when we step in and give them that mentorship of one-on-one, we have expert webinars, we have a finishing school program. You'd be surprised to know that all these girls have one ask, please help us with communicative English. So that is where we step in and handhold these girls so that they stabilize, they establish themselves in their, institutes. We also have a Mumbai-based Kotak Junior Scholarship. This year we are rolling out 1,000 scholarship. By default, 70% are girls. We also have a quota for students with special abilities, where we have in-house psychologists and specialists who mentor these students. Our USP is definitely mentoring and handholding these children so that they're taken to the next level, so that we minimize the dropouts and ensure that these students pass out. I've always, in fact, had this conversation with Neha, who's a good friend. While we are giving the opportunity to these children with special abilities, what after that? Once they pass out a BA or a BSc, what after that? At the officers and at the corporate levels, do they have any mentoring? Do they have a buddy who can take care of these students? How do we make them employable? That is a big question. How do we answer such questions? So we told Neha that let's team up together and invite corporates to do this, and we kind of tell them that how to do a buddy mentoring for these students who have somehow manage their academics well. They have enough, to pass on the examination. They have enough IQ to understand, to write and do basic jobs. But how do you take care of their behavioral issues in a work setup? How do you get this kind of sensitization done to the other colleagues in the office? So these are larger questions that we need to answer as the civil society and as responsible, leaders out here. We might give them schooling, they might get writers, they might get, some kind of allowance. They move to college, higher education fees also provide them. But what after that is another question that is looming large in front of us. Any other question, Ruchika, if you want me to answer something specific?
Ruchika, you're on mute. Ruchika.
Yes, Jayashree. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I actually wanted to know the kind of strategies that you have in place for, better community engagement. And if you have different approaches for different kind of people, different, because there are problems like economic disparities, gender. You have a Kotak Kanya initiative also. So that was my question. That was my question to you.
Yeah. So you're talking about communicative
Community
community
engagement.
engagement. Yeah, community engagement is an integral part of all our programs at Kotak Education. Be it the foundation literacy numeracy, we have a strong parenting workshops and activity where we ensure that parents are also part of the workshop. All of these kids being a first generation learner, you have young mothers who are 20, 21, who are full of energy and want to do something, useful and productive. So we do have workshops for these mothers and fathers during weekend. We ensure that the community participation is important and we give them enough and more opportunities. For example, in the foundation literacy, we have a mom and me activity competition so that the mothers and parents and grandmothers are also part of their learning. So that kind, and we also periodically have Nukkad Nataks in our communities where we take up social engagement, and all these done, Nukkad Natak are done by our scholars who we fund. So that's kind of a give back to them. They move around into the community and do a lot of awareness program. And definitely community engagement is something that we cannot ignore. We need to invest. We need to invest a lot in the community engagement. It is just all this, it is a multi-stakeholders that will actually bring about change. It cannot be just few segments, right? So that's very important that we take everybody together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I also believe in that. Shweta, we can move to we can
I
move to
wanted to
monitor
ask Ravi ji
multiple.
actually a similar question that you asked
Okay.
Jayashree, because they have broad initiatives in education, particularly with rural communities.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know if he's there.
He's here. He's here. He's here.
Ritesh, can you turn your camera on? Thank you, Ritesh. Yes, I wanted to ask the same question to you as well, because you're implementing large-scale programs in rural communities. So that was my question to you as well, what Ruchika asked Jayashree ji, that how do you engage these communities and how do you go beyond access to actual empowerment? How do you follow through that what is happening to those children that you're educating and how are they performing? So it's a broad question, but I'd just like, yeah.
I was just trying to think where to start. It is very, very critical, first and foremost. Engagement, which is the plan has to be well defined. And in my previous note, what I spoke about is bringing in collaborations where how we look at it is we are what CSR brings to the table. It's the money. Let's be honest about it. The second thing that we bring to the table is a lot of peer learning and cross learning, because the place where we sit, we learn a lot from people like all of us here on the platform. We meet a lot of people, so we identify what will work, which solution is the best fit as far as the engagement is concerned. So we rely on the people who are delivering it on ground. As HDFC Bank, we do not implement projects directly. It has to be through a network partner. And therefore, we believe in the partner's strength. We evaluate it, and ultimately we look at funding. I'll digress a bit and then converge back into this point. We have 3 goals under education. First is a pure infrastructural driven goal where we are talking about smart schools and smart classrooms to be set up across about 3,500 schools in the country. This was a pilot that we had undertaken. We have our own definition of smart schools. It can be challenged. It may not be enough, but this is something we have defined for ourselves. It should have a toilet. It should have a drinking water facility. Okay. It should have a library, laboratory, learning corner, and a smart classroom or a tech-driven, learning imparting medium. It is a matter of shame for us also, because we are still talking about toilets, but that's the reality that we face today. But that is something that we have defined. The second thing is the second goal is on scholarships, where we work with Buddy for Study. About 6,000 to 7,000 scholarships is what we provide every year. And the third goal is learning level outcomes. Now, here we are having 4 or 5 different models. Am I audible? I have screens that are frozen for rest of us.
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
You're audible.
Okay, so we are experimenting with 5 different models, and all of these are collaborations. And so therefore, the first model is on FLN, where we are working with the governments. We have a government collaboration to the extent where we have set up PMUs at the ministerial level. We have funded setting up of these assistance units to the education department to develop their plan in a more holistic way, do the content development, do the curriculum.
You're on mute.
Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. I unmuted.
Yes, you are audible now.
So the content is delivered through the existing channels. So the first point I was trying to make is, do not create a parallel channel of delivery. Use the existing channel, equip it better, right from the planning stage to the implementation stage, work with SCRT, diets, all the teacher training, drivers in the entire value chain of the government delivery system. We need to, I would say, invigorate properly and provide all the wherewithals as far as the TLM and content is concerned. Then they will engage it there. When the teacher engages, you cannot replace a teacher. Or a mobilizer at the field level will only do a partial job as compared to a teacher. So we need to equip the teacher well. So that is one model that we have practiced. The other is taking digital medium as the driver, as the center of the delivery channel. But their limitation is that schools which are capable of handling, digital transformation or, of knowledge, then those schools will qualify. But then tech-driven curriculum, imparting to these schools, limited in number, about 1,000 schools is what we are experimenting it with currently. But that is an experiment where, and this is something that emanated from something that I spoke about 3-4 years ago, that a child's future cannot just be held hostage at the hands of a teacher who may lack intent or who may lack the competency. So how does technology, bridge that gap? So content, time, and motivation are 3 things that are required. The content is available in plenty. Time is something that the child need to take out, which means the parents need to get involved a lot. And motivation is something that anyways the parents and the community and everyone in the society would require to do. Then how do we leverage technology and address the gap that is still there because the teacher is not able to deliver, either lack of intent or lack of competency. So that is that is another model that we are experimenting. Then we have also created a model which is almost at the verge of its closure now, where we have identified the gap filling model. So this is not collaboration but convergence, looking at gap, what are the gaps that exist. Simple things like a laboratory equipment is missing. So we create a laboratory and then this becomes a feeder unit to a cluster of 10 to 15 schools. Right. But then all of these, this model is not replicable. This cannot be scaled up. This is only an experiment. And therefore, those improvements in the infrastructure will ultimately need to be driven by the Department of Education only. But this is a model that we are trying to showcase. And it is not right for anybody to talk about sustainability in the sense that it will be taken over and taken up by the government. It is possible, it may not be possible, because it's a policy level shift that is required. And there are so many experiments that are going around across the country, and probably all are good, but the government cannot take up all the models at one go, right? So some of these will be embedded into some kind of a policy framework, but not all of them will feature it. So ultimately, we end up looking at collaboration as the key. As far as community engagement is concerned, it has to happen with the existing channels of delivery at the school level.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Collective,
Riteshji.
yeah. I think collective endeavor is the key to, all these problems. All stakeholders should come. Yes, Shweta, you can.
Yes,
Please
yes.
go with the question.
Actually, we are almost at the end of the roundtable, but I'd want, your bits of wisdom. And what I wanted all of you to tell us, very briefly probably, is that what are, based on your experiences, what suggestions would you like to give to people who are listening to us or to policymakers to, elevate the level of DEI initiatives, because these are very qualitative initiatives. I'm coming back to inclusion. I'm coming back to DEI. So based on this is my question, that based on your experiences, based on your on-ground experiences, what bits of advice would you like to share with the people listening? We can go around one by one.
Can I go first?
Yeah, sure, Samar.
Okay.
We'll start with you.
So really fascinating. And what I would say, my suggestions would be actually 5 very quickly. One is that we cannot wait anymore. We are seeing the urgency of having inclusion there, within communities, but within even the younger generation that we see. So the inclusion of DEI cannot wait. So we should not be waiting to do it. We have to get together, and the time to do it is now. Secondly, we know how the system operates, and we need to integrate and reflect DEI in the policy frameworks. It is there, of course, in NEP and in different sort of policy frameworks, but very clearly articulated what needs to be done, how it is to be done. We need to mainstream DEI education in the classroom settings, which is a need of the hour. Consequently, the third thing would be capacity building of educators, which a lot of speakers have spoken about. We need extensive training programs for educators to take these to the classrooms. Like I mentioned earlier, these are not subjects. These cannot be taught, in one class or one session. There has to be sustained or continuous capacity building initiatives that need to be undertaken. The fourth thing would be to focus on the infrastructure around DEI, because still there exist a lot of gaps when it comes to infrastructural problems. For example, classrooms, what inclusive classrooms should look like, and very basic things like having a toilet, like Riteshji mentioned, how our school should look like, or even benches, how they should be like. So inclusion is very basic, so we have to start from that basic level and focus on the infrastructural aspects. And the fifth thing would be that we need this coalition of partners. When we talk about multi-stakeholder collaboration, we cannot really afford to work in silos. So we need different hands coming together. And from UNODC, we always welcome such initiatives. So we are there to also sort of mobilize partners and bring people in. Rise Up for Peace, for example, is one such initiative, which is sort of an umbrella. So we invite partners, we invite stakeholders to join in, but even otherwise, we need to collaborate. So we stand ready to assist such efforts, be a part of such efforts, and take this forward.
Is it okay if I go ahead from there?
Absolutely. Yes, sure.
So one of the things that already Sir has spoken about is the fact that one multi-stakeholder approach, and also that we need a bottom-up approach now. We need to start including the stakeholders in these conversations. For example, if we are doing a policy framework for people with disabilities, for transgenders, they need to be a part of this conversation, because we need to stop telling these communities what they need. We need to ask them. That's one thing. They need to be part of this conversation, because the problems that they face in their quest to access education would be vastly different from what a child without a disability, or a male or a female child who's not a transgender would face, in terms of access to education. That's one thing. The other thing is a lot of this conversation also revolved around the advent of online learning. I feel like while it is important to come up with very stringent policy networks and come up with policies specific to education for children with disabilities, we also need some tweakings and some major changes in the current policies. in the sense that, and this is a very stakeholder sort of centric dialogue right now, because one of the fundamental problems that we face is that, the child has accessed education. They've gotten into the best institutions in the country through their own hard work and through scholarships and through the help that they have been provided. But they're not able to go because there are a plethora of issues. There are commute issues. The child is unable to maintain an attendance because, I've spoken about this before. They have physiotherapy issues, all of those medical issues. People with people with things like spinal muscular atrophy, they're not they cannot sit for 8 to 12 hours of classes, especially through college and masters and all of that. So we need, some amount of relaxation also in the way we actually access education. And also, I feel like we are so busy discussing education in the terms of just classroom education, history, civics, geography, political science, maths. We have forgotten that we live in a world which is digitized to a point where we can easily actually create we can easily create opportunities to earn through the internet. We can learn skills that can give us a pretty good earning through the internet. Those marketable skills, number one, need to be identified, which most companies are already doing. Everybody does a marketable course in this world. Everybody has done at least one online certification before they, conquer the professional world. CSR needs to go ahead, tap the rural areas, because again, as I said in the beginning itself, majority of people, children with disabilities are in the rural belt. They need to go tap those areas. We need to give, we need a sort of a round of how many people are there in rural areas in each village. We need to create spaces for them to be able to get those skills, because if the child is not able to cope up with mathematics, maybe he's good at something else. Maybe he's a good artist. Maybe he's he's a good writer. He can commercialize on those skills. And also, one of the biggest facets of this would be internet connectivity, because we still live in a nation where digital literacy is lacking right now. We are majorly lacking in that area. CSR also needs to go ahead and, ensure that things like, giving laptops to these students, giving cell phones. There have been initiatives by CSRs for different companies before, and it needs to continue, and it needs to stop coming from the charity sort of background that, we've done this. It needs to come because you need to, they are a human resource. They will be contributing members to the
it has to be sustainable, whatever effort is being made in the CSR domain. So Arusha, I'd like to move to the speakers also.
I would like to add on to that point, Ruchika, which is about sustainability, right? So I think everyone here in the forum will agree that funding is limited, be the CSR funders, be the funds with each of the CSR funders, right? It's limited. So the idea or the solution can be that how we can really create more impact with the kind of funds which we have, the kind of capital which we have. So I'll take an example about, say, scholarships. So like last year, Buddy for Study disbursed more than 150 crores of scholarships, right? But those scholarships which are gone have gone forever. The money which has gone within the scholarship has gone forever. So how the solution which I would want to bring into the table is probably certain innovative financing solutions where, instead of giving grant to the child in form of scholarship, how we can evolve that further. With the same amount of 150 crore, can we create a 20x impact? And how that can be done is, say, for example, we can give revolving grants, right? That's a blended financing where the student, once given the scholarship, once they complete their education, can they really give back, paid forward sort of a model, so that those funds can then support the next cohort of students, right? So coming back into the ecosystem and then they are getting reutilized. That is one way of doing that. Second is probably certain models around FLDG, which is first loss guarantee models, where the donation from the funder, like a CSR funder, can act as a FLDG risk guarantee. And on that, the NBFCs or any financial institution who are currently not giving funds to children can actually tap into that completely white space in India. And then probably with the same money which was going directly to the students and not coming back, can act as a guarantee where probably 20 more students can be supported with the same funds in the form of education loans, which they can repay later on. So these kind of financing solutions are the need of as we want to have more DEI inclusive initiatives, which I think is the next way forward. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Raviji has to leave for some work. Raviji, can we quickly have your insights and your recommendations for to address the issue?
Sure, sure. I want to maybe suggest something which is hard to do, but probably the most important thing. If you think about this idea that you want to equip every child with the ability to become a productive and responsible citizen, right? Someone who can take care of themselves and take care of the world around them. Because inclusivity means that I can accept everyone, I can take responsibility for myself as well as the world around me, right? I'll make a point here that this investment in life skills, as in, am I somebody who knows how to collaborate, who knows how to communicate, who knows how to problem solve, who builds a mindset of everybody is equal, I'm able to respect everyone, irrespective of their decision, irrespective of their background or where they come from or what gender they are and all of those things. I think we have an obsession with you need to learn your maths and science and you have to become very good at STEM and we'll invest in laboratories. But the truth is that your 7th standard maths has very little to do with what has made you successful in life later on, right? It's these mindsets and behaviors that you develop which will eventually hold you in good stead in the long term. So what we need is for CSR to be able to invest in these kinds of initiatives and for government and school systems to make these a very, very important aspect of education and treat them as equally important as your maths and science and English and history and geography, right? But this is the reason why I'm saying it's difficult is because CSR departments tend to look at, I want concrete outcomes. I want short-term outcomes, right? And these are actually fairly long-term sustained interventions and are hard to measure, but are probably the most important thing because today, even for CSR departments, when you go and talk to employers and say, what is your biggest problem today? They'll say, when we hire young people, they don't come to work on time. They don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to communicate. They don't take responsibility for things around them, right? But these are the very same mindsets that build an inclusive environment. But we tend to fail to invest in these, whether it's money, whether it's training for teachers, or whether it's creating the right kinds of environment. So bringing that investment is what I would say is one of the biggest changes that we need to make.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Monica ji, I'd like to. Shweta, you had a question for Monica,
Yes,
right?
yes. Monica ji, actually, I wanted to come to you. Could you turn on your video? It's the same question actually, because I hadn't heard you for a long time. So
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Shweta.
Yes, now I can see you.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, your
I think,
suggestions.
yeah. So I think it was very interesting to hear everyone, and I think I've been hearing about how we're talking about numbers and scale, and even when we talk about CSR initiatives, I think it's really, really important for organizations to understand that there is a need of intensive programming, and though scale is important. However, we need to look into programs from a more intensive programming, so that we understand what the impact is going to really take place through the intervention. And hence, I would just give an example of one of the programs which is for girl child, where the idea is not just focusing on academics, but it is about holistic development, creative thinking, and really building the 21st century skills. It is apparently, we all know that how adolescent girls are at the higher risk of dropping out, and therefore this entire intervention is really, really intense, because this holistic development is not just about just one of the classes for the child, but also really working with the child from a 360-degree approach, and creating that mindset of transformation and change in each lives. So for us, I wouldn't say that it's numbers. I mean, each number is actually a child that is it is representing a child, which is really, really important. I think that is the angle we all need to see when we talk about our students or the children with whom we are working. We did speak about a lot of things here, but I mean, I would want to just give an example of how digitization of classrooms and innovation in STEM labs has actually created on ground examples where we have seen 3 times increase in the interest of girl child to take up science as a medium, because since childhood they were never really taught about that, you can do something which is beyond just getting into the kitchen. So now there is someone who's building their confidence and creating that environment within the child itself and the larger space that they can do something beyond just taking a home-based kind of educational option when they kind of choose their career. And that's a great initiative that we saw and a great example for us. While we are all talking about what is next, I mean, I think DEI is something which should be really core at right from the ideation stage of anything which we are doing, whether it is at the organizational level, an industry level, at a school level, and it should not be something which you fit later, kind of like a solution that you think about later. But right from the ideation and designing stage is what we should kind of start thinking of DEI. And very interestingly, if you look at from an industry perspective, inclusive products and services are the time, are really the need of the hour. And I think that's where we should start heading together as a society as well. So I think I'll stop here because we're already at running late of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I mean, that's
Small point,
that's so true. It's so true that the numbers, I mean, each number represents a child, and we need to take a more holistic approach. The investments need to be channeled that way. On that note, so Shantaji, would you like to give your
I just a very
input?
small point because I am cognizant of the time. I think when you talk about inclusion, again coming back to the fundamental thing, the whole discussion should be also about the budget private schools. It's not about the government schools, where the 20% children still are going to those kind of schools, and how do you also take them on board while strategizing whole thing. And apart from content, curriculum, training, I'm reiterating again. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Apart from content, curriculum, and training, I again reiterate my point. Unless and until there is a focus on monitoring the DEI aspect in monitoring system itself in the government, things won't move, because what you monitor, the same thing can move. So the monitoring aspects of how we are doing in DEI aspects in the system is also very critical. Second and last but not the least point is about how education currently being a state subject vis-a-vis a subject of society. So how do we engage panchayat and SMC and all those aspects? So in their priority list, they also find a place. Then only the demand level focus and pressure will still remain. Then the whole sustainability, not only in a financial term, it just in the ownership term has to be also ingrained in the society thought process. Then only there will be sensitivity around it. I think those are 2 points I just got.
Thank you, Sushantaji. Anshumanji, coming to you.
Yeah, so many panelists were talking about different requirements and different practices that has been adopted through different organizations. What we have done that, like many points that were discussed during the discussion, we have already implemented in our project. Like we have already uplifted physical transformation, be it a smart classroom, digital library, safe drinking water, sanitation. Then we have also invested a lot in capacity building of teachers. Third, we have invested a lot in community, mobilization of community. That's why demand is coming, parent teachers meeting is happening every month. Fourth one, what we have done that, we have introduced new concept like every teacher, when he enters into a classroom, like if the class runs from 10 to 5, he has to submit his mobile phone in HM room. So he has to teach without his mobile phone so that his concentration should be there in the classroom. We have seen that he has given some task to the students and teachers are engaged in their mobile phones and all. So mobile phone has to be submitted. So these types of policy level changes we have done. Second one, what we have done that to sensitize the children and their parents, we have introduced compulsory Bal Sansad in each and every school. So every month, these children form ministers, like someone is social minister, one is women and child development minister, someone is in finance minister. So they discuss about their social issues, make a list, hang the list in front of HM room. They discuss and track and demand that we want these types of things if we want to improve. Fourth one, at the policy level, what we have done that every Saturday the student has to go bag free. Means they do not have to
Okay.
study. So whatsoever they
Okay.
are good with, they have to interact with each other. They have to do some activity, engage, so that gender discrimination should not be there, caste discrimination should be over. So whatever the panelists were saying and suggesting, we are trying to implement those things on ground. As a
Hmm.
result of that, we have seen a drastic impact. Like we have seen improved in attendance within 6 months. We have seen
Wow.
reduction in the dropout of the student girls as well as boys. We have also seen improvement in enrollment, dropout. Then the children, like we know that in government, most of the children who are from the marginalized community, they come for midday meal. They come, have lunch, and leave the school. But now their timing has also increased. They spend full time because of infrastructure. They are finding good, the good conducive environment they are feeling. In that way, we are working and helping our client or the government to have a model which can be replicated in different schools or different states.
So, thank you, Anshumanji. Arushi, we'd like to give your like you to give your closing remarks.
Shweta, you had logged out and
Oh,
Arushi had shared
okay,
her
okay, fine,
point of view.
I'm so sorry.
So maybe we could move to Ritesh ji and again Jayashree ji to sum up and actually tell us about
Yes.
how we can develop self-sustainable models for education, DEI. So Ritesh ji.
Thanks again. So 2 points really. I've spoken about collaboration, which will lead to non-linear transformations. Neha also highlighted how can we make the impact of 1 to 20, 1:20 kind of impact. That can happen only when we look at non-linear transformations, which will happen only when you look at the system more holistically. If you look at the child, it's not only about DEI. You look at promotion of sports, physical wellness, mental well-being, load of the weight of the bag, climate change, waste management. There's so much more for a child to be more conscious about, and this becomes holistic in nature. So therefore, if we are kind of looking at non-linear transformation, identify what are the opportunities of delivery at the ground level, which is missing, identify the gaps, put the CSR worth of money, and we spoke about CSR and the need for success. It's a bit of a challenge. The need for numbers is a bit of a challenge. Nonetheless, we of course also started to realize, thankfully, that this is a bigger picture instead of just talking about a few numbers, 3 or 4 output and outcome numbers. We need to look beyond, definitely look at the impact more holistically, and look at providing the support, putting the money, which helps build the ecosystem much better than what it was.
Thank you, Ritesh ji. Jayashree ji, is she there?
And she's logged out. Sorry.
No, she's logged out. It's okay. We have heard her twice, so I think everybody has given their closing remarks, and we were looking forward to these suggestions. Actually, this is what we organized the roundtables for, to get your suggestions. What can we do better? And we've noted them down, and we hope to probably come up with a recommendation paper after this. So now, as we're already exceeded the time limit, but thank you so much to everyone who participated. Thank you everyone who stayed up till now. We really value your inputs, and we would be touch basing with you again for future activities that we do around education and more. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a
Thank you,
fascinating
everyone.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.